Okay guys, I'm super happy to be here in Brazil. It's my first time in South America, but I've been all around the world in Europe and Southeast Asia speaking about esports and influencer marketing. So first off, I'll speak a little bit about me. I'm an ex-professional gamer. I just retired about 6 months ago. So I did professional gaming for a living for 7 years. Besides this, I was also a consultant for an indie studio called S2 Games that then transitioned into Frostproof Studios. And I've also done a little bit of work for Tencent and Garena. So because I played a game called Heroes of Newark, that was then bought by Garena, I've been helping them with balancing, game design, and so forth. So overall, I have about 10 years of experience in esports and gaming. Now this quote right here, "Look within thyself before searching outwards," is something I coined after being part of the esport community. Now something that is very bad in the esport community is the toxicity. So I'm sure you guys are aware of when you play your games. People are super toxic, super mad, and super annoying. And most importantly, in all these talented players, so players like myself, or upcoming players like myself, would also be toxic. So we were part of the problem. It wasn't just communities. What I tried to do with this was to say that, you know, most of us pro players, actually the problem is ourselves as well. Like, we're not being good role models for the players either. We really aren't. So I tried to say that before you start going out and blaming everyone else, why don't you look at yourself first? Why don't you look at your own mistakes? It's something that we pro players don't do very often. History of esports. So we only have 50 minutes today. I can speak about esports for probably 10, 20 hours. You know, I've been here for 10 years now. I've been part of every aspect of esports. We're gonna try to nail it down to something that is more relevant to you guys. I know I'm at an indie games festival. I've been to indie games festivals before, but I'm still relatively new to indie games in general. As I said, I worked with Tencent and Garena, which are AAA titles and have a lot of games. They're a very big publisher. So the indie game scene I'm not too familiar with, but I'm learning every day, and I'm hoping to give as much value as I can to you guys. So the first tournament in esports was a game called Space War, which was developed in 1962. This tournament was actually just at a college dorm. Some people decided to just go into college and play games and give away some prizes in terms of money and student loans and stuff like that. So it was not really that big until Atari in 1980 came in and said, you know what, we're gonna try to increase the value here. Do a couple tournaments in one of our venues, show that, you know, this is something that could be really cool. In the 1980s, of course, we didn't really have internet, so we didn't have the global outreach that we needed. In 1990, however, internet became a little bit more mainstream, and we moved into online tournaments. In 1997, we had the first tournament in Quake. It was called the Red Annihilation Tournament. And what the developer of this game did was he gave away his Ferrari as first prize. So the first official real-life prize in history is a Ferrari. That was the biggest prize pool ever in the 90s. After that, the foundation of CPL came in, the Cyber Athletes Pro League, and the first tournament that was ran there was $15,000. Nowadays, of course, we have a CPL in pretty much every country. We've got ESL running tournaments globally, massive events, online and offline. And we have a lot of third-party platforms. So people like you guys can just host a tournament at any time, whatever that prize pool. So we've developed a lot since then. Now, 2003, a game called Dota came out, Defense of the Ancients. Now, this was actually technically an indie development. It was a game mode on top of Warcraft 3's engine that was owned by Blizzard. What Dota did, it kind of reinvented the entire esports scene. StarCraft, of course, was also part of this era, but Dota brought together that really 5v5, really hype kind of gameplay. And actually, Heroes of Newark, that I was a pro player in for 7 years, that was my livelihood, was supposed to be Dota 2. So I'm sure a lot of you guys nowadays have heard of Dota 2 because, you know, they have massive prize pools. But it actually started in Dota 1 in 2003, and then that turned into 2 titles. So Dota 1 was developed by multiple people, but ultimately who took it over was IceFrog. IceFrog made this game mainstream. After IceFrog left, he actually joined Heroes of Newark. So something a lot of people don't know is that the second game, Heroes of Newark, that I played was also developed by IceFrog. He then, however, was offered, you know, the big dollars by Valve and ended up joining Dota 2. And likewise, League of Legends came out around this time. So we went from Dota 1 to Heroes of Newark and Dota 2. Okay, so like I said, Dota 1, Dota 2, League of Legends, Heroes of Newark, these were some of the early games along with StarCraft. StarCraft, of course, got a massive boost in Korea. But what really set off esports, as this is real-life sport, was Twitch. Twitch launched in 2011. Before that, we had Justin TV. Justin TV was actually just supposed to be a live stream platform. It was founded by 4 people who then also transitioned the platform into Twitch as we know it is today. 2 of those founders are still there today. But yeah, the ability to stream your gameplay without any lag, live, talking to your viewers with instant feedback. You know, when you watch a YouTube video, people are commenting, yes, but you won't be able to reply to them instantly. You'll reply to them an hour later, or 2 hours later, or the next day. There wasn't that instant gratification. You wanted to talk to one of your pro players, one of the people you really enjoyed or was a fan of, you needed to wait a couple of hours or a few days. So when Twitch came out and really brought this to the scene, the sort of instant messaging, viewers were super happy. They were like, oh, I can talk to my idols right away. Like, I can get this really rolling. And not only that, they came up with this sort of, when you watch football, you have this giant crowd. It's really hard to hear everyone. While on Twitch, you see the comments live. You see you and your friends commenting live. You see other people with their opinions, and it turned into this sort of like community feeling. And in indie games, in particular, community is the most important thing. Same goes for eSports. So when Twitch launched in 2011, it was very, very small. But the kind of community feeling brought in to bring on friends, because friends never had that type of community feeling before Twitch came out. So here, if you take a look at this chart, 2012, 1 year after the inception, 101,000 concurrent viewers. Now, if you look at the global population and you look at real sports, so to speak, that is absolutely nothing. 100,000 viewers is not going to bring anyone any money, any brands coming on board, or anything. And the concurrent channel was just 2,703. Nowadays, we have viewers up to 5 million, or even including China, we got up to 50 million live viewers. That is more, or almost the same, as traditional sports. So we all started here in 2012. Of course, with the 4G, 5G coming in, it's a lot easier for other countries to get on board. But for Twitch itself, it really came down to 2015 and 2016. So what exactly happened there, if you look at the chart in 2014? So what happened there was Dota 2 came out with $1 million prize pool. 1 million USD in prize money for players. That's incredible. Before this, it was super hard to make a living out of esports. It really was. When I started playing, I think my first prize pool was $2,000, I think. And that was great, but that event was once a year. I'm not going to be able to make a living out of that. And yeah, sponsors and brands came on board eventually, but with the inception of Twitch and the inception of esports, so my career started in 2012, there was not enough money to sustain us. So what I did is I went into Twitch myself. In 2013, I started my own Twitch channel, and on YouTube, I started my own channel. Nowadays, I have 350,000 subscribers, so I grew a little bit. And because of that, I was able to sustain myself. Now, most of my teammates were still in school, or they were living at home. Yeah, they were making okay money. When we won, we could get 5,000 USD per month or something. But it's not really enough. But when Dota 2 came out with that $1 million prize pool, people realized, and most importantly, brands realized that, hey, we can actually, make money. We can do this for a job. We can do this for a living. It's not just the content creators on YouTube anymore. We are also athletes now. Esport players are athletes. And as you can see in the numbers here, since 2015 and 2016, the original Dota tournament, the numbers are just going up every day. And I think I saw a number 2 weeks ago where there was 2.5 million streamers live at the same time. That's crazy. 2.5 million people streaming for free, by the way, live playing their games. So the eSport ecosystem. We got the teams, the tournaments, organizers, and distributors. So teams, of course, I'm sure you guys, if you watch eSports, have heard of Cloud9, Fnatic, we got hundreds of them, The Secret, and so forth. And then we have the tournaments, which of course they play in. The organizers can be ESL, DreamHack, BIG if they wanted to host a tournament, so. And then finally the distributors. So distributors such as Twitch, YouTube. And this is really just a 4-type ecosystem. Now, if we go deeper into every category, there's a lot more behind it. I'm going to do that in a second here. So, the stakeholders is, of course, the developers and the publishers. We got Valve that I talked about that took this idea of eSport tournaments and brought it into monetization. So, if you have followed the history of Dota 2, yes, the first prize pool was $1 million. What is the prize pool this year? We have 2 months left, and it's at 19 million USD already. Last year, it was at 25 million USD. That's absolutely crazy. But what they did is they brought in the community. As I told you guys before, the most important thing in any title in traditional sports or esports is communities. So they did a model where they took 25% of all the content they created about 3 to 6 months before this tournament, and they put it into the prize pool. Now, easy math, that can tell us that they basically made 75 million last year during these months from just the items developed for this tournament. That's a ridiculous amount of money. But most importantly, they're bringing more value to the scene. And the community loves them for it. They're like, yeah, it's just 25%, you know, they're taking all the money for themselves, but they're building an ecosystem, and they're building a brand, and they're building quality. Now, if you ever attend a Valve event, it's like an arena. Like, there's tens of thousands of people, you're well taken care of. It's just as sports. I keep saying this, that nowadays, esports is on the same level as sports. When I first started, we weren't picked up. They were lacking translators. They were lacking hotel rooms. We had to book them ourselves, prepay them. Sometimes we got scammed. We didn't get our money back. There are a lot of stories in newspapers of teams, organizations, players not getting their money. That's not here anymore. We actually have proper organizations nowadays. Then, of course, we have brands and advertisers. They use esports as a communication channel to reach an engaged audience. This, of course, means that they sponsor, just like they do traditional sports, to reach communities. Now, like I said, community is most important. When you sponsor a game, it's just like sponsoring football. Football has tons of players all over the world. So what sports has kind of turned into is that the individual players are being monetized. Like, they're all getting individual brand deals. Yes, they have the total team brand deals, but they're getting individual ones too. Now in esports, we are getting that, but we're not fully there yet. As an example, I spoke to Mercedes-Benz 2 months ago. So Mercedes is the global sponsor for ESL and Dota 2, and I asked them, so hey, do you actually think you can sell any cars here? Like, look at the audience here. We got like 15-year-olds to 25, and this is a very local event. There's no price for the ticket. Do you expect to make any money out of this? I was genuinely curious. Like, Mercedes, are you going to make money? And they said, no. We're not going to make money now. What we want to show is the community that we care about esports. We care about gaming. We care about game development. So they actually sponsor game development conferences too. Because they want to tell you guys that, yeah, esports right now is still new, it's still in its infancy, but we were there to support it from day one. Day one, we were there. We're not going to sell any cars now. We might sell in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but we were there. So that's how they're using esports as a communication. Intel, of course, pretty straightforward. They develop some of the best processors in the world. They're one of the biggest producers. It's pretty straightforward. They sponsor an event. We want to buy their products because they're supporting the community. But even brands such as Mercedes-Benz are getting into it. Investors. So I know there's a lot of media right now. There are organizations getting up to $200 million in funding. Now, if you ask me, I believe that's the next slide, yes. So, if you ask me, that's absolutely ridiculous. Only 6 organizations in the entire world are profitable. None of them are profitable on a tournament and salary basis. Because, look at it from a sport way. If you're going to take 20 to 50% of my prize money, why would I want to play for you? I'll just play without an organization. Back in my days when I started playing, yes, we wanted a sponsor, and they could take some of our prize money because our tickets weren't being paid, our hotels weren't being paid, our travels weren't being paid. So if they gave us money to do that, and they got some in return if we won, that made sense. But we're not looking at $5,000 tournaments anymore. We're looking at millions and millions of dollars. So why is only 6 of them profitable? Because yes, esports is technically a little bit in a bubble. Players are getting, some of them are getting up to $100,000 in salaries per month. Nothing can sustain that. Nothing can sustain those salaries. Also over multiple titles. Esports and gaming has so many different genres and so many different titles that you can't just buy a football team. You gotta buy football, basketball, ice hockey, and everything because there are so many genres in games. So it's just not sustainable. So what do the 6 teams have that are actually profitable? They have products. They have hardware, they have merchandise, they have software, and that's what they sell through these players. So they use them as a vehicle to make money. Because without being able to use their players as ambassadors, they're never going to be profitable. So when someone raises $200 million, that's ridiculous to me. Yes, esports is growing, esports is going to keep growing, but it's not sustainable at this moment. It's only sustainable if you have something to sell. So if either of you are part of an esports organization or thinking of starting one, remember, you're not making any money in the first couple of years. You won't. Unless you have something to sell through these players and through these teams, it's just never going to work. However, if you do have a good brand, so particularly Cloud9, which is this logo right here, the blue one, they are making lots of money. Now why? Because they have their own products, but not only that, they decided to, instead of just creating our own products, why don't we partner up with all these big brands and we create our own merchandise and our own products through the brands, so like product collaborations. So with HTC, there's a Cloud9 HTC phone. With Logitech, there's Cloud9 headphones. And they do it on a revenue share basis. This is a win-win for both situations because the community, we know that both brands have something to win on this. Both of them want to create something good for us, for the community, because if they don't, Cloud9's not going to make money, and Logitech's not going to make money. So they have a kind of a different model that I think is very sustainable. Very good to do. So yeah, a little bit more about me. I skipped this part in the beginning. So I actually founded my own organization. In 2014, I founded Sync eSports, it was called. We only have one team here in New York. The reason that I founded that was because I wanted to create multi-titles. But I also found out, which I just told you guys, is it's not sustainable. So instead, we just had it as an entity. We didn't really do much with it. We actually traveled the world, won multiple tournaments. I myself have won a prize for being the best player in the world 4 years in a row. My team, we were the best team in the world 2 years in a row. And a couple of more awards one at a time. But the moral of the story is, nothing really happened here. We developed our own merchandise. Yes, people wanted to buy it. But if I'm going to pay my player's salary, it didn't really work. So we split the company instead. However, I then decided to move to Asia. So I actually live in Bangkok, Thailand. Lived there for about 3 years, and when I came there, about 3 months in, I was going to be there for 6 months, just enjoy my time and try to play a little bit of the Asian scene. So actually, Heroes in New York was really big in Thailand. Most of my fans were Thai. I never understood why, so I was like, I'm going to move there, check it out, play in Asia, and hopefully get to travel a little bit. 3 months into being there, I joined this organization called New eSports. 6 months into moving to Thailand, I became CEO of the organization. I went from 3 eSport teams to 15, and I had a total of 87 employees within just a couple of months. Now, why was I able to do this? We were already a business making money. We had 4 companies. We had shipping, we had technology, we had software, and then we had hardware. So we had an established brand with a 27% market share in Thailand with products, headphones, keyboards, and the whole shebang. And I took that and I was like, okay, so not only that, Thai scene is very much new. People here aren't making a lot of money playing games, and they're super happy to just make this tiny amount. So what I did, I just designed a system where we paid for all the travel. We paid for a little bit of salary per month just to then, make them a little bit happier. And then we designed an affiliate system. So if they helped us sell more products, we made more money, and so did they. That's how I was able to grow to 87 total employees. And that's why our revenue went skyrocket. This is not possible in Europe, and it's not possible in America. But it was a great experience of mine. I left the company about 1 year ago. Since then, I'm not sure how they're doing, but at last I checked out a couple of teams. I still talk to all my players all the time. I still use them for my own projects. I want to do some YouTube videos with other brands, or if I want to advertise my indie game development, I do it for them. Super easy, and we have a great relationship. So speaking of how esports is still an infant industry, I told you guys about scams. Now scams were super, I'll be honest, I personally got scammed out of 22,000 euros of prize money that I never got paid out to me. My team members got about 20,000 euros together, so I personally lost 22,000 euros, which is a lot of money, especially because I was 18 years old. And nowadays, we're in 2019. We're in 2019, and we have something like this happening. So a little bit of background, this is Tfue. He's nowadays one of the most popular players in the world. He plays Fortnite, and FaZe has of course been here for probably 15 years, I think. So what happened was that Tfue has made, millions of dollars, right? But in the contract he signed with FaZe Clan, he signed that years ago. Something that happened during my time. Luckily enough, I have enough experience to see a bad contract when I see it. So a lot of my players, both in Thailand and in Europe, ask me for advice, but I also made some mistakes in my youth. And this particular contract said that FacePlan is eligible to take 80% of all revenue from him. 80%. Any money he makes, they can take 80% of that. Now that's absolutely ridiculous and would never be allowed in sports. But we're still here in 2019. Now luckily, FaZe never took that money. So they're currently having a legal issue that is all over news and media because of this problem, but I don't think anything's gonna happen, to be honest. But it just goes to show that he signed that contract. He did. It's no one's fault but himself. Because we're not knowledgeable enough. Esport players don't know. And just last week, I had a friend come up to me, and in the contract, there was a specific line that said, any contact that I ever introduce to you, even if you speak to them in 5 years from now, I get 25% of that money. What? How is that allowed? And that's still the kind of contracts going on. And people sign them every day. And I hope that we can improve this very soon. So Collegiate Esports Championship, that exists now. I'm sure you guys know that college football and everything is super massive in America. I'm not super into it myself, but we do have this for esports now as well. So ESPN is hosting Collegiate Esports Championship in America, and they're giving away scholarships, they're giving away money, and a little bit of support all over the way. This is a great step into esports. Really, really good. I hope we can see more of this. I'm actually collaborating with some schools in Thailand. I hope to bring that to them. They asked me to help them design it, but it's very easy to speak in this industry, both in indie games and normal games and esports. People speak a lot, talk but no action. That's kind of how it's been, so I'm super happy that ESPN decided to do this for America. I hope you see it soon. Okay, so how is this relevant to all you guys? How is this relevant to indie games? That's what we're going to speak about today. So, Apex Legends. I'm going to use this as a case study. The reason for this is they did a marketing campaign that's probably the cheapest of all AAA titles of all time. They kept this completely under wraps. No one has had any idea that this game was being developed. No one said anything, no one leaked anything. But behind the scenes, they hired influencers. They hired these esport players or streamers, and they had them test the game because they wanted them to like it. Because at the end of the day, if you want to reach that smaller community, you got to take the head of it first. So they wanted to take Shroud, Dr. Disrespect, Ninja, Tfue, all these players, and they wanted them to like the game. Because if they like the game, they're going to send it to their communities by their reactions. So when someone watches their Twitch or their YouTube and they're enjoying the game, the viewers will automatically be on board. So 1 week before the launch of this game, a picture leaked on Twitter. Now this picture just had 5 of the top influencers in the world sitting next to each other playing games with no screen. And people were speculating, okay, so what's going on here? Like, why are these 5 in the same room? And there was no information at all. Just, okay, we're playing games. When the game got released, everyone loved it. Within 1 month, there was 25 million players, within 50 million, I think, because these influencers loved the game because they did the development together. They were part of the inception process. So it leaked out later that 10 months before the release, Apex, which of course is Respawn Entertainment, owned by EA. I know how everyone has their bad opinions about EA, but Respawn Entertainment did a great job with this game. And these influencers went out, they played, they uploaded on YouTube, they uploaded on Twitch, and they were only paid for 1 stream. So they were paid, yes, to show up, they got their travels covered, and they were part of the development process, but that's not a paid gig. It's not that they're going to pay millions of dollars for that. But when the game was released, then they paid 10 to 20 influencers, and let's say that this whole campaign cost maybe $1 to $2 million. That's it. For all of these influencers and 25 to 50 million players. Because they created something with these influencers, with these esports players that they knew they would like. And when you get people like me to like your game, it's super easy to get my community to like it. Because when you go out there and you contact influencers, I'm sure you guys have contacted them or worked with them before, and you ask them to play your game for money. You know, when I get those deals, and yes, I've done those myself, yeah, if I'm not super into the game, it doesn't matter how well I want to comment on the game or how much I want to push it, it's not natural. And people who watch you, my closest community members, they will know that. Which is why it's so important to work with these from the beginning. It's so important to get them involved in the development process. So ambassadors, and that's of course marketing, sales, and communities. Now events is not super relevant to us. It's very hard for us to create offline events. It really is. It costs a lot of money. You gotta hire staff, and you gotta get things rolling. Maybe some of you have connections that you can actually run offline events, and if so, that's great. But online events, however, do you know that hosting an online event nowadays costs zero money? $0. There are third-party websites where you can host your tournament with automated brackets that you can yourself just change one button. You put in all these teams, and you just click, boom, winner, and it goes all the way through. It doesn't cost you anything. You can use one of your own employees to actually host a stream or host a YouTube, and I assume your employee is paid already. So yeah, sure, that's the cost. Your employee's time, or your time. But the actual event itself costs nothing. We're going to talk a little bit later about what I personally did with my indie studios. So for the ambassadors, Ninja, Shroud, Dr. Disrespect, yes, we are not going to afford them. We're not. But these guys are actually not important. There is a study that came out last year that 84% of all people in the world in this study basically would buy something from a micro-influencer. What a micro-influencer is someone with, let's say, like 500 to 50,000 followers. That's it. A very low amount of followers. Now, of course, the less followers we have, the cheaper it is for you guys to hire us. And those are the communities that I target with my new studios. That's the ones you guys should target. You should never go for these guys. You can't afford them, and also the conversion rate is actually smaller with these guys than it is for the smaller ones. Apex Legends excluded. Apex Legends is a one-off that I still don't know how they did it, and I would love to know. But for ambassadors, we want to target those tiny influencers, the smaller ones. You guys want to look for them. You don't want to go for 100,000 subscribers on YouTube or 500,000. The most important metrics for you guys is engagement. How do you find those really small communities with, let's say, 5,000 people with a really high engagement, constantly talking to each other, and then you get that influencer to like your game? That's potentially 5,000 sales. You're never going to get that conversion, but it's a lot higher than these ambassadors and a lot cheaper. We're also going to talk a little bit about models later. For marketing events, so I did a marketing event for one of our studios where I hosted an online tournament. Now, marketing could be different to all your individual games. It depends on what genre and what title you have. But the purpose of this is, of course, to grab sales. And when it comes to communities, I manage all my tournaments and all my studios through Discord. I think Discord is incredible. It's one of the best tools of this year, and of the last couple of years. And it allows you to really connect with your teams and connect with communities. There are tons and tons of these game development communities and genre communities. There are like JRPG communities with like 50,000 people talking every day. Those are the ones you want to find. Right now, I'm part of about 30 communities about game development. Why? Because I'm looking for indie studios like yourself. So at the end of this presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm doing right now. But the point here is that communities is the number one thing. Number one thing you want to be involved in. Because in these communities, you'll find influencers as well that are interested in the genre. So if you're a JRPG game creator, go find the JRPG communities. Within those, you'll find really, really happy players that just look for new titles all the time. And you'll find influencers that want to look for new titles. It's a lot smoother than going around Googling, okay, so this YouTuber, this influencer, let's email all of them. It's not going to give you a lot of results. Product collaborations, I mentioned before. This comes down to merchandise. When you work with an influencer that has 50,000 followers, why don't you give them a little bit more incentive? You know, create something for them. So this Steve Aoki logo right here could be your game logo. What about a character in your game? I have a great example that I actually learned of 4 weeks ago. So I met with Rockfish Games, the creator of a space game, and they told me that they contacted Coke Carnage. So Coke Carnage was is one of the biggest streamers in Twitch. And he loves to play random titles. Absolutely loves it. So he joined the Kickstarter of Rockfish Games for this game. And when he did that, they were like, oh, damn, we have a bunch of streamers like signing up for our game. What can we do for him? So they reached out and they said that, hey man, we really want you to play our game. How about we talk about like a potential couple days period where we pay you to play a game? He said yes, he did it. And here's what happened. He fell in love. He absolutely loved the game, and he ended up playing it for 10 days and giving them sales like 20 times past what they paid him. 20 times. So then they were like, okay, what do we do now? How do we utilize this? So they put him into the game. They took his logo, his community, and they just added him to the game. with a product collaboration. So he got his own community. He's got his own, I don't remember the exact name, but it's like a clan. He got his own clan into the game with his own flag and everything. And what do you think? Did he play the second game? Yes, he did. Did they have to pay him? No. Because he already fell in love with your title. And that was an industry game. So sponsored content. This is what I talked about. So how can you actually collaborate with us? How do you pay me, or how can you make me incentivized? Now, I'm going to give you two answers here. Number one is, for you, you always want to sign an influencer performance-based. Every single time. However, I will never say yes to that. Okay? Any smart influencer will never say yes to that, because it's not my problem if your product isn't performing. It really isn't. Like, you're approaching me to make your game big, and make your game go large. If my viewers don't like it, that is not my issue. You're paying me for my fame and my amount of followers. But you want to find those people, because not all of us know that. So when I go searching for influencers for my games, I always try to negotiate for performance first. Well, why? It's simple. If you download my game or you get people to buy it, you get $2 per copy. Something like that. Because then I will never spend money for nothing. So when you're out there, you're looking for us, try to negotiate for that first. But it's going to be hard, but I recommend it. Now, the other one is, of course, discount codes. Discount codes is great. You might pay me, let's say, $100 per day for streaming your game, and you also give me a discount code for all Slap fans. That is great regardless. No matter what deal you do, giving us discount codes for our fan base is great. It makes us feel special. It makes my viewers feel special. Like, oh, this game partnered with me, partnered with Slap, and they're giving us a cheaper game. That's awesome. You actually know who like Slap is. That's what my viewers are thinking. They're thinking, you contacted me, you reached out to me, and you gave me a special code. My community would love you for it. Discount codes is something I always encourage. Affiliate links, got one here from Shroud. So Shroud is probably, at this point, one of the top 5 streamers in the world in terms of engagement and viewership. This is a post he did about Brawl Stars. You can see that the engagement here is not too good. They probably did not end up making money off this post. He got 1.4K likes, 85 retweets, and 78K views. Now, views mean nothing, and also this guy has millions of followers. What if they took those, let's say, $20,000 and they put it into 50 smaller influencers? They would have gotten more than 78,000 views. And it definitely would have gotten more sales. This once again goes into, do not find the PewDiePies, do not find the Shrouds. Find the ones that play your type of game in the country you want to target, and take those. Pay them less, give them performance, give them something that they like, discount codes. Competitions and giveaways is of course great. Also something you can do, so giveaways, you can give me a couple of keys to give away to my fan base, like let's say 2 per day while I'm streaming your game. Because people love giveaways. And not only that, I get to put your thing in the title. If I have exclamation mark giveaway in my title, because you're going to tell me to do that, they will click that, and in the Twitch chat, your game will pop up again, and we'll give away some games. People love that stuff. Communities love that stuff. Free stuff. Who doesn't like free things? Ambassador roles. So, of course, ambassadors are the face of your game. Now, what's important to think about when you pick an ambassador is that these guys, if they screw up on your behalf too. You hired them. You wanted them to be the face of your game, so if they do something bad, that is on you. So when you pick an ambassador, do your research. Go over their social media. I mean, we're on the internet. You can find pretty much everything nowadays. When you're picking these ambassador roles and you're finding someone that you want to really, really promote your game, just scroll through his social media. Make sure there's no racism or anything else so that you don't make a mistake, because they might give you a lot of bad PR. And it does happen, and it will happen.
I see you noticed a few things.
Okay, didn't know it was this light, my bad. So Dr. Disrespect, okay. I'm going to show you this video for one reason only. When I told you guys about looking for influencers, it's important that you don't make us too much into robots. You don't want to force us to make content. Instead, give us a little bit more freedom. Now, why I say that is because it's been continuously proven that when you let us do our thing, of course you got to sign off on it, but when you let us do our thing, the conversion rate is a lot higher. So this video is by Dr. Disrespect. Now, for those of you who don't know him, you're going to think this is ridiculous. This is like a really, really stupid video, but it's the highest performing ad of all time. So this video is about a product collaboration between G Fuel and Dr. Disrespect. And they just told him, what do you want to do? And he was like, let me go wild. And they created a concept that shows his character. So Dr. Disrespect is a character that is basically an asshole. Like, he is the best in the world. Everyone else is worse than him. And there's no one but him, the two-time champion. So let's take a look at this video.
I see you've noticed a few of my trophies. Yeah! These old things. You didn't think I'm just a two-time video game champion, do you? Champion like me. Chief.
Yeah, like I said, ridiculous, right? This video, I believe, got 25 million views. What do you think the budget on that was? $100,000? Less than that? Because they let him be who he wanted to be. Now, any outsider would think that is absolutely crazy. Like, why would you ever allow someone to do that? Non-gamers, yeah, maybe they would think the same. But this product is G Fuel. It's meant to be a healthy energy replacement drink for gamers. So it was perfect. People loved it. Actually, on LinkedIn, that's where this video got the most views. Like, business people watched this video being like, holy damn, if they just reinvented this. And for me personally, I mean, this made my speeches a lot easier because whenever I speak about influencer marketing, which is the thing people get me to speak about the most, I just show this video and I'm like, they ask me, what do you mean let them roam free? Let them do what they want, let them be their brand. And I'm just like, look at this video. It works. Okay, so Avaria VS. So, all right, let's get into GTR. So I am, like I said, retired 6 months ago. I've been an advisor to indie companies half-time, so to speak, for the last 2 years. I'm on the board of an indie company in Thailand. Also helped GTR and Garena and Ascensão before, as mentioned. And now I am full-time for Global Top Round. So Global Top Round is an indie game accelerator. Every single year we pick out the top 10 studios from one of our conferences where we invest 40,000 USD and then we continue forward from that. So if we backtrack a little bit, we are currently a team of 6 people. Well, sorry, we were a team of 6 people before I joined. I'm number 7, and we've also hired a marketing expert, and we're going to hire one more video editor. So what we aim to provide at Global Top Round is, yes, we provide money. That's great. It's not the massive amount of money because we're more business expertise. We want to come in, we want to help you with anything that you can imagine. We want to help you with company structure, equity structure, finding publishers, finding investors. And we have a very big list of sign-on publishers and investors. Now, what does sign-on mean? It means that they have signed a mutual agreement where they have to review our games and our studios that we recommend. So if one of you guys become a GTR studio, We will send that to a publisher, we'll send that to an investor, they'll go over it, and most importantly, they'll give you feedback. I've been to a couple of indie game conferences now. I'm still new, like I said, 6 months of being an advisor, actually just 2 weeks of being full-time. So I'm still new to it, but what I have learned and what I've asked a lot of my studios, so we've invested in 40 studios so far. The company's been going for 5 years. We're about to run our this year's event in Busan in September, 8th to 10th. That's actually why I'm here. So I'm hoping to find some very talented indie game studios here at BIG that we can invest in and also invite to Korea. But yeah, when I asked my studios, I'm like, what's your biggest problem? And they said, well, you know, we go to all these events, we get all these business cards, and we send all these emails, we send all these builds, and then nothing. Yes, one might reply, and they're going to test our game, and then they disappear, or it didn't perform, and goodbye. What we want to provide our partners, our publishers, and our investors is to actually give you feedback with why they didn't pick your game. So if they look into it, you'll know why. So the next time when you approach a publisher, then you'll know exactly what you need to change, or exactly what you want to improve. And most importantly, a lot of you guys, or a lot of our guys, sign very bad publishing agreements. And that happens also every single day. That will never happen by being part of GTR. We go over every single contract with you, and we don't take any cut from helping you with all the documents, helping you build your community. Yes, we invest, we take a little bit of equity in our first investment. We can talk about that later when I have my one-on-ones with probably some of you guys. But we don't charge per month. We're there as your backup, as your partner. With GTR, we're not just another accelerator. We want to be there every step of the way with you, by your side, helping you with anything that you need to. Which is why we just hired someone in marketing too, which is why I'm on board. So our founders actually don't come from gaming. They come from consultancy, they come from VC. And then, you know, here's me, I'm an ex-professional gamer. Like, I don't fit into their circle at all. But what I can provide is a lot of expertise in influencer marketing. I can provide a lot of expertise in game mechanics, game design. I've designed my own games too, actually, albeit never built. I have done my own GDs. So yes, GTR. This year, 20 studios from all over the world. Last year we had almost 300 applicants, and we run the conference yearly in a different country. And I'm here to talk to some of you guys to hopefully invite you to that. Now, for Avaria. Avaria is one of our American studios. So they're owned by Juncture Media. His name is Andrew. And he came to me and he's like, Pontus, I want to get into eSports. I want to run eSports. I'm like, okay. So, you know, I'm still an advisor. I don't really have time to help you that much. But tell me what you want. And he said, okay, I want to run an eSports tournament. How do I do that? Oh boy, do you have any money? He's like, no. Okay, well, you know, eSports, you need a little bit of money, right? But I think a common misconception is that eSports has to be 10, 20, 50, $100,000. That's not necessarily true. People play football all the time for no money. They're like, when I play with my friends, it's for pride. When you come to eSports, yeah, it's for pride, money, and a bunch of other things. You have a game, you have assets, you have skins maybe, you have in-game currency. You have so many things you can give away, maybe even merchandise. You don't necessarily have to pump in $20,000. So I said to him, okay, so do you know if your game will work? Like, have you had your test yet? Have you tested it with different regions? He said no. So I said, okay, how about we run an influencer tournament? We don't pay anyone. We put a prize pool, and we make it invite only. So we invited 100 influencers from all over the world. And then we added $5,000 to the mix. And the purpose of this tournament was, yeah, you know, if we're lucky, we get some sales. But most importantly, we get to see, does this game work in Southeast Asia and globally? Which region do people like the game more? So it's kind of like a test, right? Like, what regions do we want to target? So this tournament was run 2 months ago. We ended up being top 7 on Twitch by paying nothing. Now, because I come from eSports, I have connections in Twitch, but they told me that, hey man, like, you gave us a 2-week heads up. We can't help you. So we didn't get any marketing support. We just had influencers that we didn't pay. We just had a $5,000 prize pool, which could have been a lot smaller, by the way. $5,000 was because that's what we wanted to put into it. It could have been $2,000, it could have been $1,000. It obviously depends on the size of the influencers that you target. The bigger the influencer, the more money. Going back to my point, you don't want to target Shroud and Dark for disrespect. Find the small ones, invite them, let them create content for you. Instead of going to all these 20,000 subscribers Giving them $100 each, why not invite all of them to a joint event and get that hype factor? So what we got 100 content creators creating content on the same base, with the same hashtags, with the same videos, on all different platforms, because we invited everywhere. And we got top 7 on Twitch. But, because my network is sadly mostly Thai, I invite a lot of my Thai influencers and ex-employees. Let's just say that in Thailand, premium games don't work. Not really, like it's very hard to make them work. So what the test told us was that, yeah, no one's gonna buy your game here. But what we did notice was everyone loved it. Absolutely loved the game. The chat was crazy and super positive. The influencers' faces, we didn't pay them, we're super happy. So GTR and us, like we went into a room together and we said, yeah, damn, like this game has so much support. Maybe we want to help them a little bit more. Maybe we want to do a couple of more tournaments or something. So we are planning the next event. Yes, it doesn't work in Thailand, but imagine us doing this tournament 6 months before. We would have known that this game is premium, doesn't work in these regions. Maybe we want to focus on mobile, which is extra data that we actually could have done. So yes, case studies, so important that it's really up to what you have. What are your assets? What is your game? What kind of content can you create? This title is a strategy one-on-one game, JRPG. Yes, the entire genre of the game itself fits esports. Your title might not. That doesn't mean you can't create community events like the best 5-minute clip gets $500. The top 3 clips gets whatever. The top 5 gets 10,000 points. Let's try to remove this have-to-pay influencer kind of strategy. Like, I think a lot of you guys, and I may be wrong, are paying for your content all the time. Yes, you always have to pay, but you don't have to pay any money. You really don't. You gotta create something of value that us as influencers enjoy, and that will automatically get translated to our communities. You don't have to convince 10,000 people. You have to convince 5 people with 10,000 in their communities that will then get your email. That's as simple as it is. Stop going into every single market and just buying tons of Facebook ads. Stop going to big influencers. Go to the small ones. Convince them with your game and your content why they should help you. That is what you need to do. And that is what I'm going to keep pushing. Okay, so that is it for me. I guess we have 3 minutes if anyone has a question. Anyone have a question? Yes.
What makes a game suitable for esports?
Ooh, super hard question. There is no good answer to that. So let me answer it in a long way, because it is a good question. Esports, as a word, is nowadays connected to a lot of money and team versus team. That's not true. We're just a sport, just like anyone else. What makes it suited for esports? You should ask yourself, what makes it suited for a community event instead? Esports is a community event, not necessarily a massive, large-scale online or offline event. It's just a community event. So for esports itself, well, yeah, you need like a custom game mode. You need to be able to set up that I can play versus you. That's, of course, a must-have. Apex Legends doesn't have that. Has anyone seen Apex Legends numbers recently? Because there is no system for people to play against each other. So they made Apex as an esport title, but they forgot the most important game mode. So that's, yeah, game modes and ability to play against each other. Any other question here? No? Okay. Thank you very much, guys.